Hey y'all, I'm Hope, and today I'm putting together my September TBR. It is after much deliberation and a little bit of panic on my part that I am deciding to retire TBR Betrayal. The game has just never quite worked for me the way I want it to. I've always wanted it to remind me of things that are on my shelf that I've forgotten, bring things back to the forefront of my mind, create like a narrowed selection for me to choose from when I'm picking things to read throughout the month, and it's just never worked that well for me. I've never ever, I think, finished one of my TBR Betrayal TBRs, and I found that like frustrating and a little demoralizing. And then this month when I've just kind of like gone, okay, I have these projects I'm working on, I have a few things I'm doing, I have this stuff I have to read, and just kind of put it like next to my desk, I've found that my reading has picked up quite a bit. So I think from now on, I'm just going to pick some things to make progress on, because I would much rather be making progress on things that I've already started than constantly churning out a new TBR that I know I'm never going to get to. So that being said, this is basically a list of things I have ongoing, things I really want to get to this month that I'm expecting that I will not read, probably not all of them, but at least some of these books. It's a mixture of things I've already started and also an ongoing goal of mine, which is to read pre-orders when they come in. So I'll also be talking a little bit about what pre-orders I have coming in this month that I will hopefully be reading as they arrive. I know there's at least one that I'll read day of, but I feel like this is going to work better for me, and as much as I'm going to miss playing TBR Betrayal because the actual making of it was very fun for me, I think that this is going to be more conducive to me actually reading what's on my shelves and reading more consistently. So with that all being said, let's start with the books that I have to read in September. First up is Snow Crash, which I'm reading for the class I'm TIing for. It's environmental justice in literature and video games, so we're going to be reading Snow Crash. We're actually not reading it until October, but I want to read ahead of time so that I can have a sense of what the book is about and also have some time to plan, because I'm leading discussion for one of the days that we're going to be talking about justice and violence in Snow Crash, which is kind of my area of interest, particularly right now with the projects I've been working on. So going to be leading discussion and I need to get ahead on this. But this one follows here our protagonist, who is, I think in the real world, a pizza delivery man, but in the metaverse he is a warrior prince who goes on a like wild mission to stop some sort of shadowy villain threatening to bring about the infocalypse. So info-apocalypse. I think it sounds like it's gonna be fun. I've never read this before, but I have heard a lot about it because I think it's kind of a classic sci-fi, or kind of a modern classic. It's from the 90s, but I've just heard a lot about this, and I think this is one of the earlier like video game books, so I'm interested to see what this one is like. Then I also need to read for class The Merchant of Venice, which will be a reread for me. This will be my third or fourth reading of it, but I'm looking forward to this. I think it's an interesting play, and I get something new out of it every time that I read it. And then lastly, for my thesis, I'm going to be reading Law and Film by David A. Black, which is a book about law and film. And I don't know anything beyond that. It's got some theory pieces that I think are going to be useful. It was referenced in another article that I read, and it's about like representations of law in film and how that like the legal genre works and how it represents the criminal justice system or possibly questions the criminal justice system. So really interested in this, and I think it's going to be useful for my second thesis, which is going to be focusing a little bit on like representations of justice in video games. The rest of the categories I kind of have to have my phone for because a lot of these are ebooks, but the next thing I want to mention is arcs that I have that I need to be reading. I think all of these are books that are already out, so two of them are arcs that I had ahead of time that I failed to read, and then one of them is an arc that I just got that's for a book that came out a year ago. It was one that I had like wished for on NetGalley, but I've got The Twyford Code by Janice Hallett, who wrote The Appeal. I love The Appeal. The first time I tried to read The Twyford Code, I got like 30% in, but I was just not vibing with it, and I think I was in a bit of a slump at the time, so I really want to restart this one and give it a second try because I love The Appeal so much, but I think this was just not working for me at the time I picked it up. So I'm gonna probably circle back around and try this, but this is about a guy who is like a convict who has recently gotten out of prison, and he is now looking into this mystery of a book he found when he was a child and a teacher of his that went missing that he thinks is somehow related to a code that may be embedded in that book. The whole thing is told through audio transcriptions because he's like recording on his iPhone and interviewing people. So it's interesting. I just didn't connect with it at the time, but I'm hoping that a second chance will be just what it needs. The other two I have that I've not started are The Things We Do to Our Friends, which is a dark academia story that I know almost nothing about. I remember the premise sounded interesting, and then I forgot about it entirely, but I want to read this one for my ongoing Dark Academia project, which I still really need to make some progress on. So I will most likely, I think, get to this one in September. I think that's going to be one of my top priorities in terms of the arcs. The last one is The Art of Prophecy by Wesley Chu, which is the first book in the War Art saga. I think this one is like an inversion of the Chosen One trope, where there is a Chosen One who, because of that title, has kind of like let power go to his head, and now he is being whipped back into shape by an older woman who is a warrior who is trying to make him into the hero he needs to be to fulfill the prophecy. I think it sounds super interesting, and I've heard some good reviews for this one, so I'm looking forward to it. I am confused, though, why I got an arc a year after the book came out, but like, whatever. I'm gonna accept it, and I'm gonna move on, and I'm gonna read it. The next chunk of books are all things off my priority TBR, which this is supposed to fulfill the function for me that I was wanting TBR Betrayal to do, of just like bringing things back to mind for me so that I wouldn't forget some of the books that have been on my shelf for a while. So if you missed this at the beginning of the year, I pulled 12 random books out of my mug. It's over here. We'll get to that in a minute. But I pulled 12 random books out of this mug of books that it's like every unread book I have. And I'm very behind on that. I've read one, I've DNF'd one, and actually I didn't even DNF it, I unhauled it. I read the description again and was like, I don't want to read this. So I've finished one, I've unhauled one. That means I have 10 left, which means I need to read about 3 of them per month to finish that list this year. So I wanted to try and prioritize things that had been previously on TBRs or that I'd already started. So one of those I want to get to is The Raven King by Nora Sakovic. This is the second book in like a mafia sports thing. It's a trilogy. It's silly. It's ridiculous. It's kind of fun, easy to digest. It's a potato chip book. Like, it's easy to eat a ton of all at once, kind of that kind of thing. And my friends have been waiting for me to read this because I read the first one and like described it to them, so now they're waiting for me to read the second one and describe it to them. So that one is going to go on there, and I think it'll be an easy one for me to get to in September. The next one, if I don't backhand books off my shelf, is The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, which is both on my priority TBR and one that I had already started. I think I was like 60 pages in or something. So I want to go ahead and get back to this one and start working on clearing out my currently reading, because another goal of mine for the year is to get that down to like just the stuff I'm actually currently reading, and get all of these like things that I've kind of temporarily DNF'd off that list. So I want to get back to this one, and I remember really liking the writing in it, so I'm looking forward to it. It's a Viking-inspired fantasy following, I think, several different perspectives, but the one that I've heard the most about is, I believe, a woman who is like searching for her son. So I'm really interested to see what this one is like. And then the last priority TBR one I want to put here is Slippery Creatures, which was on TBR a few months ago. This one is a historical mystery with a queer romance at its center. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I've heard really good things about this one, and also one of my favorite authors, Freya Marsk, tweeted about it and said that she loves this book. So I'm really excited to pick this one up. The next goal that I want to kind of have something for is I have a bunch of series that I've been wanting to either start or finish throughout the year, and I have made like no progress on that. So I'm gonna focus on a series that I'm sure everyone is really tired of hearing me talk about. I'm tired of hearing me talk about it, but it's The First Law, which the Catch Up Book Club has been reading this, and I have been missing all of the live shows because I'm still on book 1. But my goal for September is to at least finish The Blade itself, finally, because I don't think I'm going to get to it before September. But ideally, I would read at least these first 2 books so that I could read The Last Argument of Kings in October. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about, which I mentioned a minute ago, is pre-orders, because I am trying as much as I can to read new books as soon as I get them. I want to be better about doing that. So the pre-orders I have coming this month are City of Bones by Martha Wells, which I don't remember a lot about. It's a fantasy book, I think a standalone from the mid-90s, I believe, and it's being republished by Tor. I don't remember anything about the premise, but I really like Martha Wells' writing, and I also have Witch King I need to read that's over here somewhere. But I'm really interested to see what this is like, because the only thing I've read from her so far is Murderbot, and I know this is probably going to be very different, but I'm curious to see what a fantasy book from her is like. Then I also have Mammoths at the Gates by Nevo, which is the 4th book in the Singing Hills Cycle novella series. I love the first 3 books. This is one of my favorite ongoing series, and I've now gotten in the habit of pre-ordering it and then reading it day 1. I get the ebook. I know I'm going to be reading this one day 1, and I am so excited for this, especially because I've seen some early reviews from people who have liked the other books in the series, who have said that this is like their favorite one so far, so I'm really looking forward to it. The next one is The Death I Gave Him by MX Liu, which is a sci-fi locked room mystery thriller retelling of Hamlet, which is just sounds fascinating. Hamlet is one of my favorite Shakespeare plays, and I am so excited for this one. I have never read anything from this author, but it just sounds like it's going to be so much fun. I'm very excited. And then the last one I have here is Untamed Shore by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, and that one, I believe, is another one that's being republished. It's, I think, one of her earliest books, but this one, I believe, is a noir set in Mexico, so I'm really interested in this. I love everything I've read from Sylvia Moreno Garcia, so I'm very excited. I think I've bought most of her books since, like, from Mexican Gothic on. I think the only one I haven't picked up and read yet is Signal to Noise, and I have a couple that I've bought but haven't read yet. But I'm very excited for Untamed Shore because I think it sounds really interesting, and I'm curious to see what it's like going back to one of her earlier books, having read, like, almost everything she's put out since Mexican Gothic, and loving her writing now, so I'm curious to see what her earlier work is like. So those are all of the things that I'm kind of planning to pick up sometime in September. I know I'm not going to get to all of them. I'm going to make a valiant effort to get to some of them, and you know, the maximum I've ever read in 1 month was 11 books. It happened like a year or two ago. And those were big books too. I read like 3 600-page fantasy novels that month. But I'm gonna do my best. Now, I did bring, where is it? The Fighty Cat Mug of Destiny in here, which I previously used for Omens. And I think one thing I would like to do is draw one book from this every month to get something completely random that's not planned on my like list for the month, just because then I will hopefully remember to read things off of my shelves. So we're gonna pick one. Just one. Singular. Okay. Get a little one. Hey! This works out perfectly. This is another book I've actually already started. So we got Newcomer by Keigo Higashino, which is the second book in his Detective Kaga series. I love the first book, which is Malice, and I started Newcomer last month, I believe. It was on my TBR from TBR Betrayal, and I never finished it. I read, I think, like 30 pages. I was really interested in it, but I just had too many things going on. So, I'm gonna set that there. That means, where is it? Where you at? There you at. There it is. Do I have a... Yeah, I even left my bookmark in here. So I'm just a little ways in, but I'm really excited for this, and the fourth book in this series to get translated. This is actually, I think these are like books 6 through 9 or something, but the fourth book to get translated is coming out, I think, in like October or November. So I'm very excited about this. I really like Detective Kaga. I think he's a very interesting detective. He's like a former school teacher who's now a homicide detective, and I really enjoy his perspective. So I'm excited that this made it on the list. This worked out really well for me. So that is everything I am planning to read in September. Again, I'm not going to get to all of them. I'm going to try to get to as many as I can, but I'm really excited about September. I know it's going to be a busy month because school is happening, and I'm going to be working on my thesis, and it's going to be a lot, but I'm still excited. I think school is really interesting this semester. I'm having a good time, so I'm hopeful that like the motivation is going to continue because I've been very motivated this month, and I'm hopeful that it's going to be another really productive month. So with that being said, that is all I have for you today. Really hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, I hope you'll consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to see what comes next. I'm currently posting every Tuesday and Saturday, so there is more content coming soon, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.